You women out there that have a problem with Israelite men, and you got men out there, so-called Israelite men, that have a problem with other Israelite men having concubines. Like, what's wrong with you niggas? You know, you dudes, you have a peasant mentality. Here it is, all the nations. I put up the daily verse this morning. All right, in Lamentations 5 and 11, that our women, our wives, our daughters, our mothers, and our grandmothers, yeah, even our grandmothers, if they were alive during the time of the siege, all right, Neo-Babylonian siege under Nebuchadnezzar, they were ravished, they were taken, they were raped. Come on, son. Here it is, you fucking niggas, you motherfuckers, bro. Esau came over here to the shores of America and found our beautiful Israelite women, all right, of the tribes, the Northern Kingdom, from North, Central, and South America, gorgeous, beautiful. What you think this piece of shit Edomite, all right, of the tribes? Esau came over here to the shores of America and found our beautiful Israelite women, all right, of the tribes, the Northern Kingdom, from North, Central, and South America, gorgeous, beautiful. What you think this piece of shit Edomite did? He took them, bro. He took them, he raped them, he had their way with them, he made them their concubines. Same thing with Judah, Benjamin, Levi when they came over here. When we came over here, you know, from the western parts of the Africas, you know what I'm saying, or Africa, excuse me. You know, the Western Hemisphere, the Ivory Coast, the Kingdom of Wahida and all of that. What do you think they did with our women? What you think? What you niggas think they did with our women? What you think that, forget about the slave ships, the passage, the Middle Passage, the triangular slave trade, the voyage. And we got over here, sold us an auctioning blocks. You had forget about it. If it was a curse, if you had a beautiful wife, beautiful daughters, that was a curse, bro. If your wife was gorgeous, your daughters were gorgeous, that was a curse, because you already know your slave master, this cracker, was about to take them and have them for himself. And that's exactly what he did. He made them concubines, bed wenches. And you telling us men, hopeful men of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, that we can't have concubines? Nigga, are you out your fucking mind? We gonna have our way with the heathen women in due time, when that time come. And if a brother want a concubine now, he can have a concubine now. What is a concubine? A concubine is a so-called lesser wife. In other words, and to put it in layman's terms, it's a side chick, all right, a side piece, a piece you have on the side. She's not qualified to be on a wifely status, but you can handle her and deal with her accordingly for sexual pleasures. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you want, sexual favors, whatever, however you want to phrase it and put it. That's what they did to you. You females out there that got a problem with the Israelite man having concubines. That's what they did to your monkey ass. And you telling us that we can't do the same thing in return? Matter of fact, let me get a scripture. I didn't even think I was gonna go ahead with this, but get a quick precept. Y'all see, I don't have a ruling class mentality. First of all, women don't have a ruling class mentality. You jakes, you Israelite men that don't have a ruling class mentality, you should be ashamed of yourself, bro. You know, you guys out there talking about, you had that one nigga. If the bros from the Carolinas see this video, you put the guy name up. I forget his name, if you care to. But he was the same guy that fell off. He fell off a while ago, but he was talking about, you know, it was a whole thing. I only want one wife, because he had a wife. He had a woman who knew about the truth, and he was in the truth. You know, he was on some shit. I'm only going to have one wife now, one wife in the kingdom. And before somebody come on here talking about if a man want one wife, that's his business, man, you just shut the fuck up. All right? I'm not talking to you. All right? I'm not talking to you. You have a peasant mentality, and this ain't for you. Of course, if a man want to deal, if Apostle Paul said it, you know, right, truth, and he was in the truth. You know, he was on some shit. I'm only going to have one wife now, one wife in the kingdom. And before somebody come on here talking about if a man want one wife, that's his business, man, you just shut the fuck up. All right? I'm not talking to you. All right? I'm not talking to you. You have a peasant mentality, and this ain't for you. Of course, if a man want to deal, if Apostle Paul said it, you know, if you want to deal with 0 women, then that's fine too. You know, but that's not to restrict a man from, you know, refraining from exercising and you know, vitalizing his sexual appetite. You know, if that make any sense. You know what I'm saying? I was reading a quote the other day. It was saying something about the more healthier you are, the more fit you are, is the more hornier you are. And I did some research on that to see how true it was. Not to, just for scientific, see if it was backed by science, because I could say there's a lot of truth to that. But just to see if it was backed by science, so-called, it was. For many reasons, the heart, the libido, the testosterone, the estrogen, blah, 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 balance and all this and all that. It makes a whole lot of sense. So it's best to, deal and not burn, As Apostle Paul said. But anyway, before I, switch and go off topic, let me read Zechariah 9 and 12. It says, "Turn you to the stronghold, ye prisoners of hope. Even today do I declare that I will render double unto thee." So we are the prisoners of hope. All right, the Israelites, we are the prisoners of hope. We are under bondage of hope. The hope of what? Salvation, to be delivered from the bondage of our enemy. Matter of fact, Esau still got our women. He still got our wives. The last video I put up was 7 women shall take hold of 1 man. It's ringing the bells. That day is fastly approaching. So Esau, they still got our women. But as he lose grip of reality, as he lose grip of his kingdom and his kingdom circles the drain, that's when, that contract covenant that he made with Eve and our women are going to break. And that's when they're going to want to come over on the other side. And that doors of mercy, that line, that straight line, that straight gate, that passage is going to be very narrow for these females. All right. But anyway, the point is, it says that I will render double unto thee. So they took our women and did all types of things and, stuck they damn, fucking shrimp up in our women and shit like that, bro. Violated. And then send some of the women back to their husbands during the time of slavery I'm talking about. And the man, the husband, the slave couldn't do shit about it. You telling me these devils, they ain't gonna fucking pay? See, we not gonna do that. We not gonna take their women in the kingdom, pop them, and then send them back into the pit to their husband. We ain't gonna do that because that's adultery. The scriptures tell you about adultery. The women in the kingdom, pop them. You telling me these devils, they ain't gonna fucking pay? See, we not gonna do that. We not gonna take their women in the kingdom, pop them, and then send them back into the pit to their husband. We ain't gonna do that because that's adultery. The scriptures tell you about adultery. The adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. We not gonna do that. We gonna do things righteous. All right, we just gonna take your daughters from you. All right, and they're gonna be our concubines. You know what I'm saying? Point blank, period. In the kingdom, you gonna bring your daughters unto us. All the nations, all the heathen nations, from Esau all the way to Ham. You got some pretty Hamites out there. And I'm not talking about the ones they show on National Geographics. The spear chucking, long neck, bunny hopping Hamite, the South Sudanese and shit. That's the ones they show you. It is way better looking Hamites than that. I forget the region. I'm not even thinking about Ethiopia. There's another region that got badass women out there, bro. Shit, I remember years ago, the elder bishop, Ainap had sent me a video, bro. These chicks were bad. They were bad. They had their long hair, dark skin, pretty. They ain't look like no Australian Aborigines and shit like that. They were pretty. They were attractive. So Ham ain't all the way that ugly. Some of them are ugly as shit. And those are going to be the field, not even concubines, the field slaves, the field women. The one that wash your drawers and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? But whatever. All right. They're gonna they're gonna get paid back double. So let me get to the point and then I'm gonna wrap it up. So I typed in men of Yahweh that had concubines and how many they had. So it says, here are the men in the Bible who had concubines, along with how many are specifically mentioned in scripture. I'll list what the text clearly states. Sometimes the exact number is not given. Okay, cool. Let's go. So first one is Abraham, concubines, more than one number not specified. And of course, we know Hagar was mentioned, all right, in Genesis 16th chapter. So it says the scripture it gives is Genesis 25:6 mentioned Abraham give gifts unto the sons of the concubines, which is plural, meaning he had more than just Hagar. The second one, Jacob, 2 concubines, Bilhah and Zilpah, which Bilhah was Rachel's handmaid and Zilpah was Leah's handmaid. All right. Genesis 35 and 22 refers to Bilhah as his concubine. These women born the tribes of Israel: Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, the northern kingdom. All right, 4 out of the northern tribe. So the third one is Gideon. Gideon, at least 1 concubine. Judges 8 and 31. And his concubines that was in Shechem, she also bared him a son. So these are Israelites that had at least 1 concubine. Judges 8 and 31. And his concubines that was in Shechem, she also bared him a son. So these are Israelites that had concubines, all right? Gideon, an Israelite, had a concubine. All right, of course, Jacob, the progenitor of the Israelites, and Abraham, before the grandfather of the Israelites, so to speak, before the Israelites came, but showing you that there's many examples of Israelites who had concubines.